Now, if we view that as the funnel coming into our process, now we talk about the difference between Scrum and Kanban, right? So they have this list of things to do. Scrum, the primary difference is Scrum is batch oriented, right? Meaning that we set a time box of 1, 2, 3, or 4 weeks, 2 weeks.
So the classical sprint, right?
The sprint, exactly.
Or iteration. Let me ask you a off the cue question.
Yeah.
What's your preferable size of a sprint?
2 weeks.
Oh, God bless you. I see, you make me feel good about myself because I've been saying that and I don't know as much about it, but I'm like, anything that's larger than 2 weeks doesn't make sense to me because you have that classical effect that you have too much slack in there, right?
Yeah, and there's some other challenges, especially with newer teams. If your sprint is too long, they tend to waterfall the sprint.
Yeah.
Right. So you take a 3-week sprint, they do design, they do analysis, they do build. Yeah. It's like, no.
That's when the product backlog all of a sudden doesn't have 3 columns. Now it has 12 columns, right?
Exactly. It out of control. 2 weeks. And I think you and I both agree this. It's hard to get work done in 2 weeks. It's not easy, but that's by design. Yeah. Right. Break your work down smaller, reduce the risk, reduce complexity, and you get more work done as a result. Yeah. Right. So 2 weeks is my primary go-to. So break the work down, have a sprint, you get the work done within that time box, whatever time box you choose. It is expected that once you start the sprint, that you're not going to change the sprint, or at least you resist.
Yeah, it's a uniform set of time. Your releases can be at different intervals, but your sprint stays the same. It's like when you run, I have my favorite watch here that I don't use. It's a runner's watch, which basically the sprint here is 1 kilometer or 1 mile, right? How long does it take you to do it? Period.
System. Yeah. Exactly. And we don't want to change the scope that's in that sprint. So fixed duration, you plan your 2 weeks. If you change your scope, your plan is gone.
So are you talking about WIP limits?
Not yet.
Okay, good.
There is an implicit, let me say it this way. There's an implied WIP limit in Scrum. There's physical WIP limits in Kanban. And WIP for the group, WIP is work in progress.
So how much you take from column 1 and put in column 2. And that is a social science completely unto itself. And if anybody thinks that they can do that with a process-oriented mindset, you are screwed. This is soft skills out the wazoo. You need a sensational, lateral thinking facilitator, scrum master, yabba dabba do master, whatever you want to call it, that basically coaches the team through that process. Otherwise, in my opinion, it doesn't work.
Yeah, and you can start Kanban in an hour, right? Yeah. It's easy, but to get good at it, that takes time, right? And self-discipline, which is, and I'm a huge Kanban fan, but you got to have some level of self-discipline.
Well, when we're talking about WIP limits, we're still talking about more classical product backlogs, right?
That is correct. Yeah. But the work that you have in process right now, that's the limits that you're going to want to set.